Okay, it's 10:05, and I think we should probably get going in the in this webinar. We're really appreciative of Preferred Employers, who has been a partner of the PIASC Insurance Services since 2003, offering California-based workers' compensation solutions. They are a California-only workers' comp solution with great experience in the state. I'm happy to introduce Eric Hansen, Jan Beaver, and Miranda Morales on the panel. They're going to be part of the group that will be presenting today. We're very happy to have them as part of our services to you. As a matter of housekeeping, again, we're going to try and go through the presentation. If you have questions, feel free to chat them in. I'll try to respond to those questions if I can. If not, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A afterwards. So as you get a question or you think of a question, please chat, and then we'll ask those questions at the end of the presentation. Eric, are you ready to go?
I am ready. Thank you, Dennis.
All right.
Morning, everyone. We're thrilled to have the opportunity to present Think What You Want and Be Careful What You Say, with a focus today on helping you as employers help us control injuries that take place at work. And I think the first place to start this morning is on the cost of injuries. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is it's over $75,000, the average cost of a lost time injury in California. And if you look at a breakdown between medical and indemnity, indemnity outpaces medical just slightly on lost time injuries, but both obviously are pretty big shares of the costs that are out there. So we'll start with a few assumptions, all right? As business owners, any time away from work is going to impact profitability, and certainly that applies in the workers' compensation world, right? You hire folks because you have a job to do, and you want them to be able to complete that job, provide that service for you, and any time away from work impacts your ability to do that. We also believe strongly that jointly managing workplace injuries between employer, injured worker, and the insurance carrier absolutely has the power to contain costs and impact overall outcomes on cases. The next point I just kind of covered, but I want to stress it again, how employers and management within an organization handle an injury is just as impactful as an injured worker going to the doctor, taking care with the treatment that they're receiving, with following the medical plans that doctors give them. It is amazing how much impact employers have over how quickly their employees recover from a workplace injury. And it's critically important as employers to plan ahead. And that goes for anything, obviously, but certainly when it comes to a workplace injury, if you have a plan, you're going to know how to react when the stress of an injury situation comes up within your shop. So very important to plan ahead. All right, so a couple of basics for legal compliance. The first is to make sure that you're posting your key notices. So that first notice, the DWC-7, is your notice to employees for injuries that are caused at work. And that gives employees a one-page view, either in English or in Spanish, of the different types of benefits that they are able to receive in this system. It also lets them know where they can get medical treatment. And it's very important that this is filled out. It's not only a finable offense if it's not in the state of California, but what's most important is that an employee is able to look at that and they know where to go for medical treatment. Preferred Employers operates the only directly contracted medical provider network in the state of California. And we carefully select our physicians that are in that network so that they're going to deliver high quality, timely medical care to help folks that are injured at work get back to work and get back to life. It's very important that people get to doctors that specialize in industrial injuries. So that notice is critically important. The other one is facts about workers' compensation, making sure that that is provided to new employees during orientation. Again, it's a state rule. It's very easy to do during an onboarding process with new employees. Again, it avails them to their rights, help them understand in the unfortunate event that a workplace injury takes place, what their rights are. So we look at 3 steps that are critically important when it comes to post-injury management. And the first is, okay, if you have a serious injury, call 911 and let's get someone in there to get the person to a hospital to get the emergency medical treatment that is needed. If it's not an emergency situation, we highly recommend the employer transporting the injured employee to the designated medical provider within our medical provider network. We think it is a very bad idea to let an injured worker drive himself or herself to that medical provider. And we'll cover that a little bit more detail in a moment. Certainly you should report that claim timely to your workers' comp insurance carrier. The more time we have, to help your injured worker understand the process, to help them feel comfortable with what's going on. And those types of things help us avoid litigation on claims. And if you look at that initial number, that 77,000 number we looked at in terms of lost time injury costs, if you add attorneys, that number goes up significantly. The other thing is, another legal obligation is to make sure that you're giving the injured worker the workers' compensation claim form, or DWC-1. That should be done within 1 working day after receiving notice of injury or illness. And giving that to your employee is by no means an admission of liability or even your agreement to injury. It's just simply a state requirement. And as we get into investigations, one of the things you will hear us talk about is very good idea to hold your opinions about whether you think an injury is legitimate or not, and to maintain a good relationship with your employee. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more in detail as we go along on this. Communication and openness are absolutely essential, and anything that builds a wall really is going to translate into more cost on a claim. So in terms of post-injury management, there are really good reasons to transport your employee, and biggest is just to show care and concern for what's going on, and to be able to communicate with the medical professionals when you get to the office what the person does. And in a sense, with a smile on your face, you're able to give the employer side of what happened, right? You're not controverting what the employee has to say. You're just there to make sure the doctor understands what the injured individual does for a living, a little bit of background on what happened, and it keeps the scales a bit balanced. But there's some things you can do when you're in the car that can actually be extremely beneficial to the case and can put your employee at ease. So the first is to let them know that in work comp, the medical treatment and the medications they're prescribed, they're paid for by the workers' compensation insurer. You can let them know if they're losing time from work, the doctor takes them off of work, they're going to get paid for that time loss at 2/3 of their average weekly wage, and it's tax-free. The other part is, if the doctor gives physical restrictions related to the injury, then you're going to work with them to bring them back to modified duty if at all possible. And then also just a simple reassurance of someone not worrying about their job and knowing that when it's safe to come back, they're able to come back to work. Think about, each of us, if we stepped into that situation and we're the person that's hurt, and all the things that run through your mind, right? Your bills, how am I going to take care of my family, etc. That car ride is your opportunity to put your employee at ease. And I would stress, whether you think it's a legitimate work injury or not, the same thing applies. The more comfortable someone feels, the more willing they are to actually just spill the beans, so to speak, right? If I'm at ease, I am that much more likely to tell you what's going on or to slip and maybe admit something if I am trying to pull one over on my employer. Very important how we come across demeanor wise. And it's the same thing we tell our examiners in the claims office. How you treat an injured worker, how you interact with them actually enhances the quality of an investigation, enhances the quality of information we receive. Another thing that we've done here that we offer to our policyholders is we've created an MPN Plus product with our partners over at MedCall, and it's simply a telemedicine product. And it's an alternative to having to actually go a distance or fight traffic to get to a medical provider. And it's meant for more simple to moderate injuries. It's an app or a phone call, and it allows an injured worker to call in their claim, and they get on the line and they provide a little bit of background information. And then within 5 minutes, they're on the line with a board certified emergency room physician who actually has the power to prescribe medicine, to make a referral to a facility if he or she feels that's necessary. We've had some good luck on this. This is a relatively new product for us in the last 6 months. It's been very well received. We thought initially it would work well in rural settings. We've actually found that, if you're sitting in downtown San Diego or downtown Los Angeles and you've got to get out there in the traffic and get someone to a doctor, that it has great application there as well and save a lot of time. Now, certainly not meant for more serious injuries, but for the more simple injuries, has been a good solution for us.
Hi, this is Jan Beaver. I just wanted to add something that Eric was talking about on that car ride to the clinic with the injured worker. There's studies on everything nowadays, and one of the studies that they've done over the last several years is what really drives the injured worker to retain an attorney to help them with their work-related injury. And the three things that Eric mentioned: not knowing how the medical is going to be paid, not knowing what's going to happen if they're losing time for work, and is their job safe. If they don't know those three things or any one of those, that drives a lot of injured workers to get an attorney. And if you've ever had a claim and the employee has retained an attorney, you know that the cost of those claims can go up 2 to 3 times just with attorney involvement. So it's really critical that you continually impress upon your employees what workers' compensation is all about and what it pays, because you just can't tell them once. You got to tell them several times during the year so they start remembering it and they realize that if I get hurt, here's what's going to happen. It really is an area of unknown for most injured workers. They've never been in the work comp system, and when they're in there, they have no idea what's going on. They're getting a lot of letters from the claims examiners explaining what the process is, but it's bureaucratic letters that the state has come up with that most people, they read them and they really don't know what those letters are telling them they need to do next. So that's why it's so important for you, the employer, to communicate these things to the injured worker. So they're hearing it from you, they're hearing it that it's going to be taken care of, I don't have anything to worry about, and they're less likely to get an attorney. And that saves you a lot of premium dollars down the line when those claims costs go in and they affect your unit stat.
All right. All right. So we also think using a return to work process is extremely important. And it's honestly good, not just for occupational work-related injuries, it's great for non-occupational injuries as well. There are a lot of studies out there that show that injured workers that are connected to their fellow employees, that are connected to some form of normalcy in their life, recover faster. And if you think about it, if someone's sitting home on the couch, watching daytime TV, listening to attorney ads all day long, it's awfully easy to fall into a negative cycle that ultimately prevents someone from ever coming back into the workforce. Having a known return to work process also reduces the cost of absences, right? People know what to expect. They know that there's going to be something for them there. It's a great way to keep productivity going. If someone's unable to do their normal work, most places have something special that needs to be done that you just can't find time to do. And boy, these types of return to work jobs can help with those things. Again, we can't stress enough, anything we're talking about today, positively interacting with your employees that are hurt at work is going to decrease litigation. Keeping someone focused on something that's productive keeps them from thinking about how much pain they're in, what a bad deal they might be getting, and reduces the number of calls that'll go out to an attorney. And also, by the way, helps with the early identification of fraudulent injuries that employees might want to claim. And if you think about it, if I'm trying to file a false injury, okay, I may have all sorts of different types of motivations. One of those motivations is to not have to come to work, yet still have a way to finance my time off, my fun time, so to speak. And when you have a return to work process, and it's well known, first off, someone understands they're going to get hurt and the doctor takes them off, well, I'm still probably going to have to come in. Some people will stop and think twice about that. And I always say it's good for someone in a positive way with a smile on their face to have to work for it. So if they're really trying to pull one over on you and you bring them back to work, it just shows them that maybe this is not quite the easy path that they were thinking about.
Studies have found again that if an employee is off work for more than 6 weeks, the chances of them returning to work in the next 6 months go down significantly. So that's why it's really important to get them back into work and intermingling with their peers or friends and keep them in the routine of coming into work every day and being productive.
All right, kind of in a similar vein, we were talking about injured workers being connected with their fellow employees. Very important for you as an employer to stay connected with your injured workers, right? Short phone conversations, a get well card from you or from the team. And if you think about it, if you're receiving those kind of things, it's going to make you feel positive about where you work. It's certainly going to make you feel positive about a company wanting you to come back, take away some of that stress. And again, can't stress enough, right? Speeds recovery. If I'm thinking about all the good things I have to come back to, I'm that much more motivated to get better, right? All the different things you can do to reduce anxiety. And then partnering with your claims examiner to make sure that you're aware of what the current physical restrictions are, staying right on top of those, and insisting really that your injured worker keep you up to date on what his or her restrictions are, makes it that much easier for you to provide a modified or transitional duty job. So some good things there as well. So post-termination claims, kind of the bane of this industry's existence. These are tough claims where folks leave your employment and then they file a claim when they're done. And they're very difficult claims. I know for you as employers, they're extremely frustrating cases to deal with. Believe it or not, they're challenging for examiners to investigate and to handle. So there are a few things you can do. And actually the first one starts at the beginning, which is when you're looking at your hiring process, when you're bringing folks on. Oftentimes people will interview and they will interview with experience in mind. Do they have the right education or the right skill sets? And behaviors never come up. And I think building a really robust behavioral interviewing process where you have an opportunity to put people into situations to assess cultural fit can really avoid these type of cases. You ask questions and you find out very quickly, this is probably not the right person from a behavioral perspective that we want to have in our organization. Helps you avoid post-termination claims down the road. So hiring is extremely important. The coordination and planning and execution of terminations and layoffs, also very important. Making sure those are well thought out and that when folks are leaving your employment, you're doing a good exit interview and you're getting an opportunity to have them sign off that there are no existing injuries. Can be a very powerful tool for us to assist you if a claim like this were to come in. And then if someone makes this type of a claim, we're very serious at Preferred about investigating these injuries and looking into the details of what's gone on. Often the best information that we get is from fellow employees, from coworkers that have a sense of what's going on with this person, what they may or may not have complained about when they were in your employ. Very important that if we have an investigator come out, that you're providing access to those employees. And we'll do our best, obviously, to work with you around critical time issues and those type of things. And we do understand it takes away productive time from your business. I would just encourage you to work with us, because the ability to save on these claims will have a significant impact on future premiums. So let's talk a little bit about fraud and abuse in the state of California. So fraud, and this might be a surprise to you, because if you ever watch any news shows, you'll see all the film of employees that are allegedly hurt and are out playing golf or doing all sorts of fun things. Believe it or not, the biggest purveyors of fraud in the system are medical providers, followed actually by employers and then by injured workers. The fraud standard in California is simply a material misrepresentation that leads to a benefit that you're not otherwise entitled to. And we like to say evidence and specifics are actionable. And as Jan moves in here in a moment to talk about accident investigations, the more evidence, the more details we have, the better, because when we question an injured worker, we're taking very detailed notes as to what they say. And if someone makes a material misrepresentation, we partner with district attorneys and the Department of Insurance in the state to fight fraud as aggressively as we can. Now, I want to also throw out there, Preferred does not prosecute fraud, right? That's the district attorney's job. So if we suspect fraud, we're going to thoroughly investigate. We're going to refer it to the proper agencies. We're going to cooperate with them in any way that we can to bring about a conviction.
Hey, Eric, can I just step in really quick?
Absolutely.
It seems like I'm getting messages that the screen, that the slide that you're talking to right now is not being up. There we go.
Is it up?
That should work. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thanks. No problem. Thank you.
All right. So I think one of the things, though, that we need employers to understand is, since we don't prosecute fraud and we can't convict anyone of it, we'll cooperate, but we will shift our efforts to reducing the dollars that go out on those cases the best that we possibly can. So I like to share that, because I really think a lot of folks think if you have the evidence that we can just close a claim, we can deny a claim. We may be able to certainly deny a case, but it's really important to remember, someone who commits fraud in this system still has their due process rights and still has the ability to defend themselves in a criminal court. So there are two different tracks on that. And I just want to mention as well, fraud prevention starts with the hiring process. Can't stress that enough. You get the right folks in, the right character, folks that are going to work hard and behave and participate well in your culture, makes all the difference in the world.
It does. One of the questions I like to suggest to my clients that they ask a potential employee is, how would you respond to a situation when you know a fellow employee has filed a fraudulent work comp claim? What would you do? That gives you some insight right there, what this person's values are and how they might respond in a situation if they thought they could get away with a fraudulent claim. So those are the types of behavioral interviewing questions you could ask to judge a person's character and their values and how they would respond in a certain situation. Let's segue right into the accident investigation piece. I was going to talk about this because when we're out working with our clients doing safety consultations to help them with their workers' compensation and risk management programs, one element of your safety program, your IIPP, is accident investigation. And we're looking at doing good investigations because you have to think about your kids, or if you have grandkids, and if they do something that's not right, or somebody gets hurt, or something gets broken, and you don't follow up with that and ask them what they were doing and how they were doing it, they don't feel they have any accountability. So the chance of them changing their behaviors or changing something in the future is remote. So when you think about preventing fraud, your accident investigation procedure is going to be one of your front lines of defense in making sure that people know that if they get hurt or if they think they're going to file a fraudulent claim, they're not going to skate through the system and nobody's going to ask them any questions to hold them accountable. So that's really why you want to have a good accident investigation process where your managers and supervisors know how to go out and collect the information. The thing that I find with your managers and supervisors a lot of times is it goes to the title of our presentation. Think what you want about the injured worker. You know, whether or not you think it's a fraudulent claim or they aren't as badly hurt as they say they are, or that the injury doesn't look as serious. You can think what you want about it, but be careful what you say, not just that injured worker, but also to the fellow employees. Because if you say something to a fellow employee, that's going to come right back to that injured worker. And if they think they're being slighted or they're being disrespected, where do you think they're going to go to get your attention? They're going to go get an attorney, and that's going to drive the cost up. So be empathetic. It's not that you have to coddle the individual, but be empathetic and have a little bit of sympathy for them. But let's follow good practices to make sure that we don't give the injured worker a reason to go get an attorney, okay? And as we were talking earlier about transporting that injured worker to the medical provider, I think that is really critical because it does give you that opportunity to talk to the employee before they're actually getting themselves into the work comp system, and they're not going to know what to expect when that happens. Next slide. So how do you do an accident investigation? Well, the first thing you want to do is do it rather quickly. You know, we always encourage our customers to do it within the first 24 hours. While people's memories are very accurate, they don't have time to get together as a group and talk about the incident and maybe start changing some of the facts or the process of how the injury occurred. So do it quickly so you're getting the straight facts, because that's what you're really trying to obtain is the facts of what happened out here. How did you get hurt? What were you doing? Why were you doing it that way? And figure out why the injury actually happened. If you have multiple witnesses to the event, make sure you're interviewing them separately, because if you get multiple people together and you start asking the question, you'll start getting a lot of crosstalk. People start changing their stories to meet what other people are saying and on who the leader is and who has the most influence. So make sure that you interview people separately. And then, the investigation does a couple of things. It establishes accountability, but it also shows your employees that you're concerned enough about their welfare that something has happened out here, somebody has gotten hurt. We don't want this to happen again. So let's find out why it happened and what we can do to prevent recurrence of it. And that's really what the real crux of the investigation is. Preventing the fraudulent claims is kind of a byproduct. You just want to be careful what you say when you're doing these investigations. If you suspect an injury isn't work-related, share these things with your claims examiner. I mean, you may find things out after the injury has happened when an employee tells you that, oh yeah, well, I know that the employee that last weekend was out snowboarding or water skiing, and they came in Monday morning and they had a little bit of a limp. They'll tell you these things. Make sure you share that with the claim examiner so they can take action to get investigations started, taking depositions, whatever might be needed to determine whether or not this is a legitimate claim or not. The communication you have with your folks and with our claims examiners can't be stressed enough, because we have to operate as a partner and work as a team to minimize the cost of these claims.
All right, so let's sum up. Just some of the things to take away today. One is I would encourage all of you to go back and make sure that you have posting notices up and that they're complete, that you would practice the 3 steps when injury occurs, getting to medical treatment, getting folks out to the doctor and whatnot, that you're able to explain work comp benefits to your injured employees while you're transporting to the medical provider. Take some time to think about those things. Think about how you're going to stay connected to your injured employees during the process.
Yeah, one of the things that we mentioned earlier is make that phone call to the injured worker. Make sure that they know that they're valued. And I hate to say that, even if you don't value them or you place not as much value as you would others, still tell them you're a valued employee. It just makes them feel better. And it's going to get them back to work and hopefully avoid them getting an attorney.
So make sure you're developing return to work processes and using those. If you have suspicious injuries, bring that information to your claims examiner. Do not hold off on reporting them. Time is not our friend when it comes to investigating those. And the sooner we have them, the sooner we can do a great job of protecting you from those types of injuries. And then as well, formally investigate each and every incident.
And, you know, one of the things I should have mentioned when we were talking about the acts investigation, if you find in your investigation there was a third party, somebody outside the company that contributed to the injury, let our claims examiner know that also, because sometimes we can go back to the third party if they were responsible and they contributed to it to recover costs. If there's any equipment or tools that the third party was using that may have contributed to the injury, or even if you're using equipment, something that's very simple as like a ladder, and say the ladder fails, make sure you take that out of service right away and hold that for our investigation, because again, we can go back to the equipment manufacturer and recover either full or partial costs for the injury. All right.
And with that, we would like to thank you for attending this morning, and we'd like to open it up for any questions and answers.
So Eric, I don't see any questions that came in over the chat, and so we'll just assume that everybody on the line or is listening doesn't necessarily have any questions. I actually have one, and that is, you know, and I asked everybody on the chat, but wanted to also ask it. You know, the accident investigation process is, I think, you know, something that is really critical, and in some respects, I think gets overlooked. And what I asked was, does everybody have a template for their accident investigation process? What questions do you ask? How quickly do you do the investigation, and who does it in your organization? And was just wondering if you offer any training around that, or if you have some templates that we might be able to use or be able to provide for our customers.
Now, as a matter of fact, I've got some what we call risk management bulletins that go into how to do a thorough accident investigation. And then for our customers, to help you improve on your safety program, we can actually do accident investigation training with managers and supervisors to show them how to conduct a thorough accident investigation. And it's not just all classroom type of presentation. We actually take an incident and we go through the investigative process with the attendees asking questions until we come to a conclusion of what we think contributed to the injury. You know, I've been doing consulting work with businesses for over 40 years, and I've seen everything from very thorough accident investigations to businesses that give the investigation form to the injured worker to fill out, which is not what you want to do. It should be the supervisor or the injured employee who fills out that investigation form, and it's actually part of their job. I mean, this is the job of managing their department.
Yeah.
But you can't expect them to do a good job unless you've given them some training. So, no, Dennis, what I'll send you is I'll send you the bulletin we have on accident investigation.
Great.
And you can share that with the attendees. And if the attendees, I'm sure you might want to share the slides with some of the attendees also.
Yeah, we'll be sharing it. We will be sharing it with them later today or tomorrow as well. As we've recorded the webinar, so the recording can also be shared with people. If you can send that along, that would be great. I think it'd be really helpful for people to see that. It's the thing that I think I've seen, you know, not handled very well over the years of my experience in workers' comp. That the investigation just doesn't get done very well, and so I think if employers spend a bit more time learning how to do that, the payoff is quite large.
I would agree.
Absolutely.
So I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to assume that we're all good to go. really want to say thank you very much to the team at Preferred, Eric and Jan, and for all of you attending. Really appreciate that as well. This is the first in our series of webinars that we're going to continue to promote over the course of the next several months and into next year, as we try to help our customers get better at various things. Really appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you in, I think, another 6 weeks or so. We have another one coming up. Thanks again, everybody. I'm going to shut it down. Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.